Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Boomer Live once again. Here we are to preview the Asia Cup final. We're just a few minutes away from the toss and the game. So here we are, the closest to talk about the game and what's going to happen today with weather updates, the team news, and what could be the possible combinations as we head near to the toss as well. Jen, how excited are you? Because we're just a few minutes away. The conditions look good so far. It looks like we'll have full 100 overs if things go well.
I mean, there is rain prediction. I think it's very little. I think 28% is from what I've read, which is not a very, it's a very good sign. But yeah, having said that, really hope that rain stays away because for some reason, this Asia Cup important matches have been marred by rain, and I really
Yeah.
hope this is an exception for us. Yeah, I mean, as I said yesterday as well, little excitement, a little anxiety as well, because it's been a while since India has lifted a multi-nation tournament, and today is the first time that India is facing a knockout. Sri Lanka faced a sort of a knockout situation against Pakistan. They got through. India's been going smooth so far. They've never really been tested. And today is a one day where if you lose a match,
Yeah.
your whole hard
You're,
work comes crashing down. But then
yeah.
really good sign from India. As we spoke yesterday, lot of things have been ticked off. A lot of green flags from this Indian team, and dare I say that Indian team is looking really geared up for the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, so far so good is what you can say, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because you've done a lot of things right, and you wanted to go this way as well. Because you guys, everybody, all of us, we wanted things for Indian team to go well, and especially considering the fact that India were coming in the Asia Cup as not the favorites, to be very fair, and then to do well in the Asia Cup, and also at the same time getting to know who our number four is gonna be, getting to know how things were gonna go from the Asia Cup to the World Cup. There are some question marks on certain players, but I think that's going to be resolved by the time we get to the World Cup at least because we have three more one days against Australia. So that's going to be pretty much a good sign for Team India. But yeah, Teju is like Kale masterclass loading. We really hope so. If Kale does well, I think India will do well. But talking
yeah.
about which, let's talk about how team can possibly line up, right? I mean, let's get straight into it. For me, I still think, as Teju, everyone we're talking about yesterday, Shreyas Iyer is a very tempted option for today, primarily because of what he brings into the table in comparison with what Ishan Kishan does. And at the same time, if Shreyas Iyer is off fit for this game and also for the start of Australia series, then I might be tempted to look at other options beyond Shreyas Iyer because I want him fit. I want to see how he plays. I can't let him
Yeah.
play straight into the World Cup and say, okay, let's see how he goes about in the World Cup. That's way too late.
Yeah, I agree with you. We spoke about this yesterday as well, right? If he isn't fit by this match, then you really have a huge question mark on how on his game fitness or his match fitness, whether he'll be able to hit the ground running right away in the World Cup or not. And if not, then you have an option where you've got three one-day matches at home against Australia, one of the better oppositions in this World Cup. Give someone else a chance whom you know will be 100% fit, provided he doesn't get injured, obviously, but whom you know he'll be fit, he'll be able to play the role. And I don't know now if you really want to wait till the Asia Cup and then probably even hopefully Shreyas Iyer gets fit by the Australia series as well. But if there is no scenario where he's going to get fit by that time, I think it's time that you look away from him. I'll be really gutted for Shreyas Iyer, deserves a spot in this team, but you need all your players to be 100% fit going into the World Cup. You don't want question marks, especially fitness question marks on any of your players because that can really hurt their psyche as well going into the World Cup.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the most important thing what we talk about. You want your full team to be ready by the World Cup, by the first game you're playing in Australia. And that's why these nine games, we were counting the Asia Cup final as well. The nine games in the Asia Cup were so important for all these players. Shreyas Iyer just batted once in these five games, and that was against Pakistan, the nine balls he faced. So for Shreyas Iyer to come back, he might have to come back now. And there's not a bad option to put him straight into an Asia Cup final as well. I know it doesn't send the right message to Ishan Kishan, but would you just take it? I mean, just say, okay, we'll just play him because we want to see how he plays in a big situation like this.
No, I have a feeling able that I think it's already communicated to Ishan that once Shreyas is fit, you're not going to be in the team because we spoke about this, right? I believe if Ishan Kishan was the option you were anyway looking at and not Shreyas Iyer, then there is no need for KL Rahul to keep or practice keeping, because KL has not been keeping for his IPL team as well. So it's obviously a decision which was still in the process, in the works before KL got injured. And now that you're still seeing KL keep despite a better keeper, a more specialized keeper being in the team, whom you're asking to play in the outfield, it certainly shows that, at least for me, I think Rahul Dravid and the management has already told Ishan that you're only in the team because Shreyas is not fit. So I think it's already communicated to him, and if that's the case, then I think I see Shreyas Iyer entering the playing 11 right away, because you need to really ensure that this lad is fit and he's ready to play. But I don't know if he is, though. Is he really fit?
That's a question. I mean, we are still not sure as to what his fitness status are. It looks like 50-50 at this point. He could possibly be fit. He could be ready to go for the Australian series. There's no communication as to where his fitness stands as of now. It looks like he's recovered pretty well, which is good, which is obviously a good thing for Team India and for everybody else as well. Because the most important thing what we need is 100% fitness, isn't it? 100% fitness from all your players. If he's not fit today, then obviously the questions are going to even raise up, because then why did you even take him to the Asia Cup if he was not 100% fit? So then the question again topples over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why they've tried Tilak Verma as well. I think if Shreyas is not fit, the next best option for them is Tilak Verma at this point.
I still don't know if Tilak Verma will give you that, because yeah, here's the thing, right? I think Tilak Verma will give you that balance for sure. That is something I'll agree with, and also he gives you bowling options as well. You're lacking an off spinner, he can provide you that. A top order bat who can bowl off spin is a boon to the team. But he's only played one day match so far, and you're putting him in the biggest one day stage in the world. That's a lot of pressure for, regardless of what kind of player. I mean, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma are going to be under pressure. Let alone a Tilak Verma has only played one match, that also against Bangladesh. So
Yeah,
my best bet still would be able to go ahead with a Sanju Samson, right-handed bat, someone who can
yeah,
field in a very similar way. And it's not like he's a liability in the outfield. He's an excellent outfielder. When he used to play with Delhi Capitals, for instance, Delhi Daredevils back then, Sanju used to be an outfielder, and Rishabh used to be the one who used to keep. And I don't think Sanju had any issues with being an outfielder. In fact, I think when he started playing for India as well, he never kept a lot for them. It was only recently that he started keeping for them. So he's been an outfielder for a long time. And I agree with Teju. I think
I think
getting into
Tilak
that
Verma is
one,
the Vijay Shankar of 2020, 2019, like what
yeah,
he's doing. For 2023 is Tilak Verma. For 2019 was Vijay Shankar. I mean, there's the difference in talent, obviously, because of where they stand in their
yeah,
careers. But the fast track, what you see over a Rambati rider, which I feel is Sanju Samson,
yeah.
is Tilak Verma, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you. That's how it's going to go as well. I genuinely don't see Sanju Samson making it into the 11 just because of the selectors, just because of the fact that I don't have the power to select the team. But if I did have, I would go with experience and with the fact that he's someone who's tried and tested at number 5 position over a Tilak Verma. Nothing against Tilak Verma. He has a lot of World Cups to
Yeah.
come. I know he'll become an integral part of this team until unless he himself really ruins it for himself. And it doesn't seem like that kind of a lad. Very disciplined from what we can see, very good temperament. But I just don't know if this is the World Cup you want him to play. Because you know what this can do, right? This can have an opposite effect on his career as well, Abel. You
Yeah.
push a lad who's not really ready to shake up that international stage, put him on the biggest stage, and if he fails in the World Cup, you might never give him a chance again. Look at what happened to Vijay Shankar, for instance.
Yeah. That's one thing which you always talk about, isn't it? Especially when you talk about uh, the most important of players, right? They have to be given the right amount of chance when they're ready. Maybe at times it might do wonders for him, but from whatever I see, you've been fast tracking him at a very quick pace than anybody else. So here we'll take some comments. Sanju should feel hard, and yes, who's gonna win? I think it's the hardest question to answer today.
I
Who
think
is
toss
gonna
will make
win
it
the
easier for
fight?
us to decide. But even then, you really can't say.
Yeah, to be very fair, what really happens is in these kind of situations, in a final like this, how you really see the game, from what prism do you see the game? Um, Often what happens is it's the team who really goes out there and play fearless brand of cricket. For India today, they play a final after what, 5 long years in a one day format. They'll have to do the right things, which is maybe to win the toss, bat first, put runs on the board, and then go out there and be disciplined in the ball. Because what happens is sometimes you tend to go into a shell as well, batting first. Okay, let's just be very tentative. Let's all lose wickets. That could come to haunt India at some stage today, and that's
Yeah.
one thing which has eluded India throughout the last 10 years as to how fearful we've been in these big finals, and we've lost almost every big final because of that fear nature which we have had within ourselves, and that's also because of the baggage which we've been carrying. We've lost multiple finals, so when you reach that particular occasion, the baggage of all the losses hits you at some stage.
Yeah, but that's where I was really impressed with the way India batted against Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Against Sri Lanka, we went all out. We scored 80 in the first 10 overs. Didn't lose any wickets as well.
Yeah.
Against Pakistan as well, we went hard after their bowling. And today, I mean, I was just going over the pitch report that Sanjay Manjrekar and Dominic Cork have just given. Seems like it's a fresh pitch from what they've said. And
Is it?
it seems like the boundaries are 70 meters in all directions from what they're saying. It's a dry surface again, so which means I think now it probably will be again a spinner's paradise. If probably not as much as what we saw in the past few games, but there'll be definitely some help for spinners. So the first 10 overs of the power play, India
Is it a used surface or is it a fresh pitch? That's a question.
from what I can see here, I mean it's a fresh pitch.
Right. I mean, then it's good news at least, because I
Yeah.
was really scared that they're going to be playing on the Bangladesh India game, which was
I-
again with the Pakistan India game as well. So that was slight worry for me, but I still think Sri Lanka will provide a drier surface for India, considering it's their home team and they would want to be backing their strength, which is to bring spinners into play. And they want to know without Tikshana as well. I know they might be playing Dushan Hemanta, but Vela again is going to be again the weapon to tackle. Left arm spin against India has been the way to go for so many teams in the recent past as
yeah.
well.
Absolutely. We spoke about how left arm spinners have really hurt India a lot. And we saw even in the Bangladesh game, Shakib Al Hasan really caused a lot of issues for Indian batters. Even I mean, traditionally, Rohit and Virat have struggled against left arm spinners as well. In fact, they've struggled against spinners that take the ball away from them. Especially Rohit has struggled against these kind of spinners, be it leg spinners or be it left arm spinners. Virat, I think against leg spinners, he still has a decent record.
Yeah.
Left arm spinners has troubled him throughout his career. I think that's been a kind of a chink in his armor for a while now. But yeah, having said that, I think it's going to be one of those wicket table where, as the game goes, if there's no due, it's going to keep turning more and more and more. So early overs, especially, I think if you really have to go after the Sri Lankan bowling, it has to be their white ball bowlers, the new ball bowlers. The fast bowlers tend to kind of struggle against aggression that's shown by the players. If you let them settle, they'll bowl really well. But the moment you go after them, we saw Patirana, Rajita has been replaced. So interesting to see how Madhu Shankar will do well. Madhu Shankar will do well against these players now, because he did a decent job against Pakistan, but then India will be a different kettle of fish. So how he does against them is going to be interesting. I think the best way for India to go is attack the new ball, and maybe once the ball is old, preserve your wickets till the last 10 overs or so, or then maybe look to be a little bit more defensive, not defensive, but at least doubles and singles. Because 70-meter boundary, it's not even easy to clear. It's not going to be like one blind swipe and you get a six or a boundary. So I think the fresher the ball, the more easier to go after the bowling. So you'll have to go from ball one after the ball.
It also depends on whether we are batting first or chasing as well. If India are bowling first, India will have to form a strategy accordingly. India will have to restrict them below 230 ideally,
Yeah,
or 220 as well, depending on the pitch. Because you saw 215 was really hard to chase for Sri Lanka against India under lights, even when things got really easier to bat. And in Sri Lanka, one thing is that even if the pitch is dry, the ball still jags around slightly for the first 10 overs for the faster bowlers as well. So under lights, it only gets harder. And if there is no dew, it's going to be turn and seam and swing. No, that is not a good thing at all. Then you're absolutely landing into a hole, and you're going to have a really tough time chasing anything next to 170, in my opinion. So these are the kind of situations where you'll have to be really proactive in your approach as to how attacking you should be, especially if you're bowling first. What happens is some situations you will want to be slightly more defensive. It's okay to chase 250. That's something which you saw against Bangladesh as well. You let runs being scored by Bangladesh. I think from
yeah,
the Bangladesh game, you would want to really come up and you'd want to do a lot of things right. And that's one thing is going to be intensity and not letting easy runs.
yeah. I agree with you as well. I mean, you cannot let go of the situation in any of these matches. Now, intensity has to be high from ball one. We saw India do this against Nepal. They ended up scoring 230 against us. Again, I felt India kind of let go of the situation there, and then we saw that against Bangladesh as well. Good news, though, in many ways, is India did really show high intensity against Pakistan and against Sri Lanka as well in the Super Force. Pakistan
Yeah.
again in the group stage matches, you felt India were a little unprepared at the start. After that rain came in, India seemed to be a little unprepared. But aside from that, in big matches, India has shown intensity, and I hope that's the same case today, and not in the same trap that we've fallen in when it comes to knockout matches, like you mentioned, David.
Yeah, one thing which I also found was, especially when it comes to these kind of wickets, is that you have to really be very adaptive. You can't get stuck on the crease. Rotational strike is
Yeah.
so important. How that's where you think someone like Virat Kohli against left-arm spin also have to be very proactive. I think Sri Lanka has won the toss
Yeah, I mean, just
and
to
they have to bat
confirm
first.
that, yeah, Sri Lanka has won the toss and opt to bat first. So I think now I would have to say that slightly in Sri Lanka's favor, probably 60 to 40 now. India will have to work a little more harder to be able to, come bring him themselves in the game, because chasing is a lot more tougher. It's been very difficult this Asia Cup chasing. Pakistan has been the only venue where chasing has been easier. But
Hmm.
even there, we did not really see a match where the opposition team. I think it was a Bangladesh. Yeah, I think it was a Bangladesh Afghanistan match where you saw Afghanistan put up a fight against Bangladesh. But aside from that, in Sri Lanka at least, it's been very tough to chase, because under the lights the ball starts to turn, it starts to swing. So you'll have to hope something like what happened in the India Pakistan game, for instance,
But yeah, it's
or
not
some
a bad thing
Pakistan
at
Sri
all.
Lanka game. What happened, where the pitch kind of changed after the lights came on, has to happen in India's favor, or else India has to get Sri Lanka all out very quickly.
Yeah, so that's one factor which we have to consider. At the same time, it's a good challenge as well for Team India.
It
Remember,
is.
they're preparing for the World Cup, and you have to be ready for the worst. How big a preparatory game this is right before the World Cup? Because that is the biggest question over here.
Oh, massive! Because you are now facing a knockout situation, which you're going to be facing in the World Cup at least twice. There's the semi-finals and the finals as well, and it's pretty obvious that you'll also face some situations where a match becomes must win. Don't expect it to be very smooth like the 2019 World Cup, for instance. 2019 India had a very smooth qualification. Might not be as easy this time around, because I think 2019 you saw a lot of teams going through their own struggles. South Africa didn't turn up. Bangladesh did not turn up. Sri Lanka did not turn up. But these are the same teams that look a lot more prepared this time around. At least they're going to put up a challenge. And I don't think any team is as comfortable as the 2019 World Cup. This time around, all teams have some of the other issues leading up to the World Cup. So it's going to be that much more exciting. So this is one match where you're going to have to face the odds of, not of the loss being so much more important, the consequence of loss being so much more important to the team than maybe a bilateral series.
Yeah, because I've also felt like often we tend to write off these big finals, but you want to go into a semi-final with a lot of confidence of the World Cup, and this is the best possible opportunity to play against all the odds. Now that India are chasing, I certainly think India will have to restrict Sri Lanka to 210 for this net, because in these kind of conditions, you have to get your spinners in it straight away. At the same time, attack with your pieces as well, because Sri Lankan openers are going to be their key. And if you can get Sri Lanka's 5 wickets by 30 odd overs, then you're in a better suit to go out there and defend, or to put up a score. Let them put up a score of like 200 or 210, because 250 ought to be massive in this wicket.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rohit Sharma as well has said in the toss that 240 odd is definitely a tough, a tough thing to chase down, and they are gonna probably try and I think 210. I'll agree with you, because 210 or
So
probably anything
Washington
about
Sundar is
220
playing
is
is
going
what
to
we
be
can get.
right.
Washington Sundar is playing is what we can get the news. So Washington has a place Akshar straight up.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what's happened as well. One thing's definitely confirmed from what I can see is that Hemanta is playing instead of Tikshana, so that is pretty much confirmed. And yeah, Washington Sundar does come in, so he's also in the playing 11,
Yeah.
which is pretty much what we predicted. I mean, it also shows that both the captains are ready for a dry pitch and expect spinners to do really well, which means the power play becomes that much more important. So if India can win the power play, with both with the bat and the ball, I think that pushes India slightly up ahead. But if Sri Lanka wins with either with the bat or with the ball, I think that puts Sri Lanka in the driver's seat because I believe with the toss they already are at least one step ahead, right? And India will have to
Yeah.
work a little bit more harder to be able to bring parity in the game because I personally feel chasing is very tough on this pitch, and because India is having to chase in a big final as well, that puts a lot of pressure on Indian batters.
So that is one of the biggest things we've been talking about as well, is that because chasing is hard task in Sri Lanka, and whenever you talk about chasing, right, the biggest question is it going to be easier to chase, or with humidity and with dew, is it going to be easier to chase? If there's no dew, I think the pitch is only going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, it seems to be still a bit cloudy. The sun isn't out from what I can see, and if it remains like that, then don't expect a lot of dew because the way it works, right, with dew is that basically when the sun falls really harshly and then it cools down in the evening, there seems to, there the, then the droplets are formed on the grass because the grass, it cools down so quickly that there seems to be a formation of water on the grass. But now if it remains cool throughout and if it remains cloudy throughout, then there is no conditions, or the conditions for dew isn't as much as you would see on a sunny day in Sri Lanka. So if it remains like this, don't expect a lot of dew. Expect the spinners to work their magic.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. It's gonna be tough to chase when the pitch gets slow. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it all depends on how the pitch is going to behave. We still haven't seen how the pitch is going to behave. If the pitch it's on the decent side, if it's like a two-pace pitch, you still back to chase anything close to 220, 230. But you would want to consider a lot of these extras or anything except 260, because that is where things are going to be harder. Because you have a good batting attack, but at the same time, ball is not going to come out of the bat at all. It's going to get slower and slower. You can't really blame the batter as well. It's going to be a hard time chasing any score down. So for India right now, what they have in hand is to dismiss Sri Lanka and dismiss Sri Lanka at a very, very cheap score, which will give India a better stage to chase anything down. Even if India are going to chase 250, 240 on a practical circumstance, I think India will have to really apply themselves and get a good start with the new ball. Go after their pacers, get maybe 80 odd, 85, 90 odd in the 10 overs, then go on to play a rotating strike against the spinners, because which I think is quite a possibility. Once you take out the deficit of 80 odd from a 250 score, then you're chasing what, 170 in the 40 overs, which is still a possibility, which you can still do it at a mere 3.54 over rate, and you can still maybe pop, if you have all the wickets in hand, you can do it quite comfortable. So for India, especially while chasing, they have to make the most out of it with the new ball. But the question is again, with Sri Lanka, you've seen underlines the ball tends to move around quite a bit. So you really can't go hard unless you get a pitch like what you saw in the Pakistan game. Pakistan was a Sri Lanka game where you saw the ball really coming onto the bat in the second innings. Then it's going to be easier for India to really chase it down.
But that happened because there was rain, right, in the innings break, and that altered the pitch. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen that kind of pitch conditions. And today also, it seems like rain is the only way that the pitch gets faster. But I'll tell you what, one good thing for India is I think the key ball is going to be Bumrah. Just going over the Sri Lankan top order versus Bumrah. And Bumrah has dismissed Pathum Nissanka, Kushal Mendes, and Kusal Pereira a lot. I mean, not a lot, I would say, but they've really not performed well against him. Kusal Pereira, for instance, has
Yeah,
only an average of 9 against Bumrah. And the biggest prey or the biggest bunny out of the three of them has been Kushal Mendes. He's been dismissed
wow,
quite a lot by Bumrah. I think he's. Let me just bring up his stats once. Yeah. I think he's played 61 deliveries of Bumrah, just scored 25 runs, has been dismissed twice. So the lad
yeah,
really does struggle against Bumrah. And Pathum Nissanka as well, just an average of 7 against Bumrah, which means in for India and for Sri Lanka, the key player that they really don't want. Sri Lanka don't want Bumrah to get early success, and India would
yeah.
like Bumrah to get that replicate that early success he's had against the Sri Lankan batters, and he looks really good. I mean, he's been a little undersung because of the fact that we've seen Kuldeep do well, we've seen KL do really well, but his contribution up early on has been really helpful, and I really think if he can get those wickets, then Sri Lanka will struggle again because it's a big final.
And to add to that as well, especially for India, just talking about that factor, for India, I think it's going to be about containing their openers. Kushaljan and Pereira, he's such a match winner. In these kind of conditions, You give him that license, he can go out there and win a match by himself. And he's done that multiple times, wherever he's been, regardless of the format. If he plays a good knock, he's always going to take Sri Lanka ahead of the game. Now, when we talk about the positive sides of losing a toss and chasing, is also that we've seen in some of the bigger games with India that whenever India have to set a score on board, India slightly struggle. That's because
Hmm.
India do not know what is the ideal score to set. Sometimes having the score in front of you in big finals like this is not a bad thing. You saw in the 2011 World Cup final, a lot of people lost
Yeah,
hope when India were bowling for us. The final memories of 2003 was hitting them. So in finals like this, sometimes not a bad thing. In Asia Cup 2018 as well, I think it was a hard pitch once again. Jadeja picked up 5 wickets. Liton Das scored 100, and India were chasing, and India chased it down with Kedar Jadhav coming out and pulling India out of a rabbit hole once again. India did go to the wire, but once again it was a tricky position for Team India today. The good thing is that Washington Sundar is playing, as Teju rightly mentioned, and we really hope he doesn't get injured again. For him, his work is going to be pretty much cut out. He has to contain the runs and pick up wickets as well. And Kuldeep Yadav and Jasprit Bumrah and Siraj, they will have a big job to do. They'll have to be attacking from the word go. And the most important thing is fielding. I mean, let's talk about fielding part of it, right? In a game
yeah.
like this, ground fielding and the aerial fielding becomes so much more important than any other game because you can't afford to make small mistakes which will let the
Yeah.
opposition get control of the game.
Especially on dry wickets, Abel, because on these wickets, batters are not going to be able to find middle of the bat all the time. They won't be able to score a lot of sixes, and because it's a long format as well, because it's 50 overs, they won't really go for a lot of sixes right away. So there, any batter, right, be it Indian batters or Sri Lankan batters, their go-to will be to take singles and doubles. We saw against Pakistan, for instance, how good Sri Lanka were. They learned from the India game. In the India game, they tried to attack the Indian bowlers, try to get out of jail, and they got out. They lost their wickets. But in the Pakistan game, they learned from those mistakes. They were taking more singles and doubles. I remember, I think it was Charit Asalanka and I think it was Dhananjay De Silva, or was it? Yeah, I think it was Dhananjay De Silva or Samira Vikrama, who were really taking singles and doubles every time someone like a Shaheen Shafridi came into ball, and every over they were getting 6 to 7 runs. So that's the strategy on these dry wickets, and with 70-meter boundaries as well, you'll expect that ground fielding will become that much more important. Make sure when the opposition tries to convert singles to doubles, that their doubles are reduced to singles. That's the only way to win matches.
Yeah, because one other factor is also that when you talk about these smaller margins, right? Like especially saving these plus twos, plus threes.
Yeah.
If you notice in big finals, you always tend to get that extra bit of advantage when you don't let go of these easy runs inside the circle, and that's why you have to be extremely active. The runs what you say, especially as easy singles as well. The moment you let them rotate the strike, then you are letting go of a one-day game. The most easiest thing and the thing which really injures you is the rotational strike in a one day game. Okay, you leave a boundary in a over, but if you let five dot balls from there, it's still a 4 run over. But if you let
Yeah.
five singles or six singles in an over, that is still a 6 run over, which is a bad over in a one day stand in a tougher pitch. So that's where India will have to be extremely proactive in terms of how they should not let these easy singles. India had done well against Sri Lanka in the last match and also against Pakistan. One thing which India did very well was to not let the strike rotation happen, which was to make sure you ball the right lines, right channels. And that's one thing which I give credit to Bumrah and Siraj and also to Kuldeep as well. These three have made sure the batters get stuck in a hole and which has made sure the strike rotation isn't easier at all.
Absolutely. And just look at the Pakistan match, right? Where, if you remember, Abel Shadab Khan had tried a shy of the stumps of Charit Asalanka. The ball traveled to the boundary. Now, if that hadn't gone to the fence, I don't think that Charit Asalanka would be, taking singles and doubles in the last over against Zaman Khan. He would be looking to attack and probably would have lost his wicket. So, just one mistake by Shadab Khan. I mean, obviously, a lot of mistakes were there in that match, but if you just have to focus on a few, that is one very small margin. So these are the kind of situations that when it happens, you might not realize. But after the end of the match, you don't want to sit and rue that, oh, maybe I should have ran a little harder, should have taken that double, or should have not given them that double. These things matter a lot, and catches as well, right? The run out, for instance, that Kusal Pereira, that Shadab Khan, once again, On a brighter side, got Kushal Pereira out for 17 of 7. If he had stayed there any longer, his intentions look like a 50 of 20, 25. Would have probably given Sri Lanka that head start. So fielding is really important because it's something that's 100% in your control. A,
Yeah,
a bowler might bowl a beautiful delivery but still can get hit for a six. A batter might get a snorter out of nowhere. These kind of things you still don't have a full control over.
yeah,
Fielding is one thing. If you miss a catch, it's 100% on you. If you
absolutely.
miss a stumping, it's 100% on you. There's no one else's fault there. So
Yeah,
these are the things that
absolute
you have
fielding
to
is
work
one
on.
thing which is in your control in comparison
Yeah,
with what you have in bowling and batting, and that's something you have to do well. And most of the top quality teams across the world, one thing they tick that box is to field well. And when you field well, the intensity of the team, the bowlers
yeah,
get to feel much better. It's a complete thing what you do. When you field well, it also just spreads on to the entirety of the team. It's upbeat in the dressing room. It also lifts the morale everybody around you. So one thing which India will have to do is make sure they take all their catches because you don't want to give second chance in the final and to some of the crucial players. And also stumping as well. For KL Rahul, behind the wickets on a
yeah.
turning track is going to be a challenge once again. So far, he's done a decent job, but yeah, he'll have to be at it and make sure you don't do small mistakes. And that's one thing which you had in the Dhoni as well in these big finals or these big tournaments, we took those smaller chances, which is a small stumping or a quick stumping, which really
Yeah,
changes the
yeah.
course of the match. So that's something which India will have to be really wary of. In these situations, you don't have to let go of things. So that's about it
Yeah.
from us.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Jen, before we end the live?
Nothing much. I think it's pretty much what you said. You summarized in the best possible way. And the Dhoni point was something that I was going to bring up as well if you hadn't, because that was his philosophy. That's his philosophy as a captain, right? The things that are in your control, you try and control those, and the results will fall onto itself. And that's something that's a reason why he doesn't take any pressure. And it's a very similar philosophy that I believe both the teams should follow. Because if you're controlling things that you do, then you really can't be blamed for the result, because then it has to be something brilliant that the opposition did. It's at least nothing that you could have done anymore. And that's what you want as a fan as well. Your team to fight the best that they can do. And then if the match goes the other way, at least as a fan, you will still back your team because they did a good job. And I think both
Absolutely.
sets of fans would want their teams to give the 100%, and we hope for a great match.
Absolutely. That's about it from us. Thank you all once again. Do not forget to make your team. We have still 13 minutes to make your teams on Boomer 11. So make your team all the way right now. Get your fantasy predictions, fantasy hat on. Play the premium contest Boomer 11. And also, do not forget to check out our predictor feature. We're giving a predictor insight on our Instagram page. And also, do check it out, our Instagram page. And also the Boomer 11 app on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Have a good time, all of you. We'll be back right after the match, hopefully with a brighter result and a brighter smile on our faces. Thank you all. See you all very soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye, guys.